those of you who do not know me, my name is Noel Thompson. I'm the Director of Student Ministries here at Christ Lutheran Church, a job that I deeply love. I have a blast at, and I definitely feel called to do. Pastor Brian told me last month that he was going to let me preach once a year, and it's January 13th. The second Sunday of the year, so he's cashing out that statement pretty quick. Quick question, how many of you are busy? Now, how many of you are stressed because of that busyness? Or how many of you are distressed? Every week, us church staff meet. We met this past week, and we thought maybe after the holiday season, things are a little bit lighter here at church, and we quickly discovered that was not the case. We were a busy few weeks up ahead, which is not bad. But we thought January would let us take a break. Not true. This month's worship series is titled Under Pressure, and I can't be more excited to talk about the things that we are talking about. Because the thing is this, life is often stressful and life is busy. That's one thing I've learned as an young adult. And even when we find ourselves on vacation or doing things that bring us extreme joy, it seems that life reminds us that life is life. The stress and busyness of life is always there. And no matter what family structure you are in, if you have kids or don't have kids, grandkids, it doesn't matter. The busyness of life and stress does not discriminate. We all have it. And the fact that we're talking about these things this month, I think it's great. I love it. What I love about our church, Christ Lutheran Church, is that we don't shy away from the things that might distract us from God's will or our relationship with God, because life is real. So the things we must address here at church have to be real as well. Family on the room. It's fascinating how the world throughout history has viewed families. Now the church, most importantly the Apostle Paul, really, he flipped the concept of family upside down. We read from Paul's letter to the Thessalonians today, and you have to know how radical Paul was when he was talking about family and the concept of being a Christ follower in Roman times. Let me just tell you why people thought he was kind of crazy. Now, back in ancient Rome, during Paul's life, there was a lot of emphasis on males in society and in families. So much so that when a boy became a man around the age 12, let me repeat that. When a boy became a man around age 12, the family would do a special ritual, a party. They would host a party. And they would take off the bula, which was a necklace that he wore as a little boy, and he would assume the toga virilis. Now, at that point, the man, he would enroll as a citizen. And then he would officially have more rights and authority than his own mother. It wasn't all that rare for the mother to be kicked out of the home by her man, by the boy. That's pretty crazy. Now, women, that's a different story. It's a different world. See, girls usually didn't go as far in school as their brothers. They would actually quit school around age 8 or 9. And then she would spend a few years at home, learning the skills of the home. And then when the father deemed the daughter to be mature enough, he would find her a suitor. And she would go off and be married and leave the home. So let's recap. Age 12, the boy becomes a man and has more rights and authority than his mother. And then the girls would leave the house due to marriage. You talk about a dysfunctional family system. Now, Paul addresses this problem and family structure in almost every letter that he writes in the New Testament. He talks about how important it is for the relationship between parents. He talks about how important it is the relationship between parents and their children. And he also talks about children honoring their mother and their father. In the midst of all of this, he talks about how important our relationship is with God. I certainly believe, I just have to think that this was one of Paul's biggest challenges during his lifetime, during his ministry. His beliefs regarding family were so countercultural that it was probably a constant uphill battle for him. And I just have to say that I think it's an uphill battle that still exists today. As director of student ministries here at Christ Lutheran Church, as a husband, as a father of 3 young children, I have come to the realization of this simple truth: that there is no pause button in life, and it seems like the world only wants to go fast forward. Our life is busy, and the statistics prove this to be true. In a recent study, the United States of America is the most overworked nation in the world. At least 134 countries have laws setting the maximum length of the work week. We are not one of the 134. Americans work 137 more hours than Japanese workers a year, 260 more hours than our British friends, 499 more hours than the French. 1/3 of Americans work 45 hours or more a week. And these statistics are just adults' work. We haven't even touched the surface about our kids and their schedules involving school and out of school. But first, before we get there, I want you to watch the video screen, please.
Toyota, let's go places.
I mean, think about that. We have car companies knowing our families are busy, and they're advertising their cars to accommodate their busyness. Personally, I think a Chevy would be better. Another crazy statistic: in 1960, only 20% of mothers worked, while today, 80% of American children live in households where adults are employed. I'm not saying mothers didn't work in 1960. I'm saying 20% of mothers had full-time employment. So now, it's flip-flopped. The New York Post recently just reported that the average family with 2 or more kids spends about 4 hours together each weekend day, because the kid is involved in different things. So one parent takes one kid to their sports or activity, and the other parent takes the other kid to their sports activity, and they're zip and zagging all across town, attending these different activities. So you have one parent only attending one of the activity and missing the other. I mean, this saddens me, and the reason why it saddens me is because it's happening to my family as well. When my wife and I first got married, my wife Rachel, we had this calendar in our pantry area. Simple calendar that we buy at the store, and we would write down our things in the future. Well, I noticed as each year has gone by, the calendar has gotten bigger. And now it's almost as big as the door. And the reason why is because each day we need a bigger box, so we have more to write. And that's because now my 7-year-old daughter has a schedule of her own. Last year she had dance once a week. This year she has dance twice a week. And she's expressed an interest in piano, which is awesome. And now she has piano once a week. And now my 4-year-old son has a schedule of his own. As parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, this is not just a message for parents, it's a message for families. We make conscious decisions about what is important in our lives. We teach the kids in our lives our priorities by what we do and why we do them. I was just listening to one of my favorite pastors on this podcast, and he had this fascinating statistic about his church. Over the last 10 years, he saw this huge trend in growth with families who recently just had a child or who had a child 5 years or less. The growth was huge. But then the pastor noticed another trend with this same group, these same families. He noticed that there was a huge decline in participation 5 or 6 years later. And he was confused on why that was, how it just dipped tremendously 5 or 6 years later. And so he was curious, and he decided to contact some of these families. Well, baseball is on Sundays now. Basketball is on Sundays now. Sunday is the only day my kid can sleep in. We have swimming meets on Sundays. My kid has to catch up on homework. I've been here long enough at Christ Lutheran to see this as well. Our kids are busy. And let me just say that it is absolutely okay for our kids to have a life outside of school. This is not a bad thing. Kids involved in extracurricular activities is healthy for the lives of our kids. There are so many advantages for our kids to get a well-rounded experience outside of academics. I can honestly sit here and tell you today that if it wasn't for sports, band, choir, and theater, I just don't, that shaped me. It brought so much richness in my life. But there has been a shift in our society when it comes to how we go about this and how committed we should be in the things that we are involved in. For example, the average sports season now for kids is 25% longer than it was just 12 years ago. These days, if kids don't participate in a sport year-round or train for a sport year-round, their playing time drops dramatically by 60% in the next few years. Our kids are forced to commit to one thing all the time, it seems like. When I was going to school at the University of Minnesota for social work, I encountered a great book by Michael Thompson. It was titled A Pressured Child. And he says, in this wonderful book, he says, as a general principle, there is a line between a highly enriched, interesting, growth-promoting childhood and an overscheduling childhood. He said, and nobody knows where that line is. He continues, he says, playing kickball in the street, those days are over. They are now practicing their kicking accuracy in the garage so they can make traveling team in second grade. The one thing that I see time and time again in kids is that their performance dictates their worth. If they do bad in something or good, that determines if they are bad or good. But our kids are good. In fact, when God baptized them, he says they are good. Parents, families, uncles, aunts, we are the X factor in all of this. We must lead the charge, showing the younger generation that their worth has already been determined by God. The children of today need you. They need you to be healthy. You must be healthy for your families to be healthy. So the New York Post just surveyed 2,000 parents partnering with Jenny Craig. And here's some of the statistics. 9 out of 10 parents say they make unhealthy meal choices for themselves because they're too busy looking after the family. Parents eat 156 meals standing up every year. 19% of parents say they are healthy. My job working with the youth of this church is the best job in the world. But the one thing I've learned doing this job is that I can't fill the cup of others when mine is empty. How can I fill the youth of mine when my cup is empty? And the most important thing, even before all of that, as a husband, as a father, how can I fill the cups of my family? I continue to seek God in all that I do so I can help my kids do the same. I make it a priority for my faith to be healthy so I can try and make my kids' faith healthy as well. How can I lead others to a healthy life if my life is unhealthy? Now, why do I believe this? What perspective do I have to know that how powerful family is or can be? You see, I just want to share quickly a little bit about me. I come from a very, very broken home. It was very hard for me to understand love and mercy because honestly, I didn't really feel it or see it often. My parents' relationship before their divorce was very, very dysfunctional. And I never really saw them be affectionate to one another. They would argue a lot and bicker a lot about things I just didn't understand. Who was going to cook dinner? Why is the house so dirty? Why'd you leave this there? Why is the mess there? Who was going to do the laundry? We only had one car, so who was going to bring Noah to sports practice? And of course, there's a lot of bickering and arguing about money. I never saw my mom much because she was so busy working 2 jobs to keep the family afloat. And my dad couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months. So after a while, he just quit working. And my dad was the happiest when I performed really good in sports. He was so happy. And when I did it, he reminded me of it. It got to the point where I had to ask my coach to tell my dad to stop coming to my games. Because his yelling during the game became such a distraction for me. He was one of those parents that wasn't a fan, he was a fanatic. And it wasn't long after that in high school I joined the local Lutheran church by myself, and I learned how important family is. How family can do so much good and harm to a person. I learned that a youth group can be a family. I learned how powerful a small group can be to a person, how transforming it could be. I joined a small group with guys my age, and it was their parents who took me in and showed me hospitality and love and grace. One thing I've learned in my life is that whenever we give God our time and our commitment, we never regret it. And when we improve our relationship with God, it improves our relationship with others. Now, I just kind of want to pause here and just tell you one thing. We have the most amazing parents here at Christ Lutheran Church. I am so blessed with the parents that we have here. We have parents that take time out of their busy lives. We have parents who dedicate a Sunday so they can teach Sunday school, to make our Sunday school a rich experience. We have parents who give time in a week to help summer adventure camp. I've had parents cook every day for a week at summer adventure camp. I've had parents take vacation out of their jobs so they can help me lead the service trips that we go on every summer and winter. Bobby Hartman, he's a John Deere tractor salesman. And next month, he's going to help me lead our senior high youth group to San Francisco the weekend before the farm show. I hope he keeps his job. I have parents who have already texted me asking me, Noah, when is the summer servant trip? We're planning our family reunion. I don't want my kids to miss the family reunion or the trip. Last summer, I had parents let their kids leave their family reunion early to go on our summer service trip. I've had grandparents, aunts, and uncles open up their homes so that youth could have a swimming party in the summer. They have a Christmas party during the holidays. I'm blessed. We are blessed. And as parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, we make sacrifices all the time for our families, for our kids. And sometimes I think the things we sacrifice might be the most important thing for us. It's no coincidence that when we put God first, we learn the most, we grow the most, and we receive something that the world could never give us. We learn about ourselves and we serve others. And I think families grow when they are together, when they do things together. That's why next week we have that opportunity to serve Tulare County at FoodLink, and I look up at the sign-up board, and I just don't see one name. I see families. And I just think that is just amazing for parents to serve together, for kids to see their parents serve together. That's powerful. It's no coincidence that when we put God first, we learn the most. So I just want to quickly end. I discovered a poem that I wrote about 10 years ago about family. Family. It's always more than what meets the eye. It's deeper than we would ever imagine. It's those times of joy and pain, laughter and sorrow. It's memories that will always be there for us to look back, to learn, to grow, to remind ourselves that God knew what he was doing. Even when you're not on the same page, deep down you can call. It's love. Love that certainly doesn't come from us. Love that is unbreakable even when we struggle to trust. Even when days or weeks go by without a word, family is still there and never leaves. But family is also more than just our father, mother, sister, or brother. Family is our neighbor, who we lean on due to our shared struggle to and growing. It's our friends who rush towards us so that we can be found. Family never stops growing, never stops loving, always there. May God's love and peace transform you, and may His presence transform your family. Amen. The peace of the Lord be with you always. Thank you. I invite you to share that peace to those around you.